Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're about to unravel something that is literally going to bend your mind. We are exploring a narrative so powerful and so deeply ingrained in the human psyche that it's somehow sprouted up in completely different corners of the ancient world. So get ready because we're going on a global detective hunt that spans thousands of years. Okay, let's dive right into this. The question we're tackling today is an impossibility that literally keeps anthropologists up at night. How on earth did ancient Greek poets, Maori navigators, and Chinese philosophers all manage to share the exact same creation story? I mean, think about that for a second. We're talking about vastly different cultures, completely isolated by massive oceans and uncrossable mountain ranges, yet they all dreamed up the identical cosmic event to explain our universe's origins. Were they somehow talking to each other, or is there just something fundamentally universal about how the human brain processes the world? So to crack this case, let's set our academic baseline. The separation of heaven and earth is a very specific type of cosmogonic narrative, a creation myth. The basic setup is always the same. You have a primordial sky and land, and they're just mashed together in this dark, chaotic state. Then a divine agent forcibly separates them. Now, this isn't just some story about how the clouds got up there. It represents the exact moment the chaotic universe suddenly made space for human existence, light, and order. Section 1. 3 Tales of Separation. To truly grasp how uncanny this parallel is, we're going to look at 3 of these stories. First up, we're visiting the Polynesian navigators and the Maori tradition of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Picture a time before time, defined by absolute darkness. The Sky Father, Ranginui, and the Earth Mother, Papatuanuku, are locked in a tight, eternal embrace. Their children are trapped between them in the suffocating dark, desperately wanting some space and light. Several kids try to pry their parents apart, but they fail. And then, as a 19th century manuscript by Wairumahi Te Ringikahihi records, finally, Tane Mahuta arose. Tane Mahuta, the god of forests, possessed just immense strength. And he doesn't just casually separate them. He actually lies on his back, plants his shoulders against his Earth Mother, and uses his incredibly powerful legs to push his Sky Father upward. It was a massive physical feat, and it instantly created the space necessary for life to flourish. But, it came with a huge emotional cost. It left his parents eternally separated, forever grieving. Their tears became the rain, her sighs the mist. It's a remarkably beautiful, tragic act of forced separation. But here's the crucial point. Not all of these separations were born of a tragic physical push. If we pivot sharply over to ancient Greece, around 700 BC, the tone shifts from melancholic necessity to extreme, sudden brutality. Hesiod's Theogony tells us that the separator eagerly cropped off his father's genitals and flung them behind him. Yeah, a very different picture. Right, so in the Greek tradition, we still have the sky, Ouranos, spread out upon the earth, Gaia. But here, the myth focuses entirely on extreme patriarchal violence and generational conflict. Gaia, totally burdened by her children who are trapped by Ouranos, schemes with her son, Cronos. Cronos literally lies in wait with a jagged sickle and violently castrates his father, permanently severing the sky from the earth. It's an immediate, incredibly violent rupture that forces primal chaos into an ordered cosmos. Let's just say the Greek gods were in desperate need of some family therapy right out of the gate. Okay, let's take a breath and shift to a much more patient, methodical tone. We're traveling to ancient China. Here, the universe before creation isn't a pair of embracing parents, but Hundun, a primordial chaos that basically looks like a cosmic chicken's egg. Inside this egg sleeps a giant. When he wakes up, the slow, grueling work begins. A 3rd century text notes that heaven grew taller by 1 zong each day, and the giant grew right along with it. That giant is Pangu, and his method is the complete opposite of that sudden Greek violence or the Maori push. Pangu doesn't just violently shove the sky away. Instead, the lighter parts of the egg float up to become the heavens. The heavy parts sink to become the earth, and Pangu stands between them. He grows steadily taller every single day, naturally pushing them apart. This isn't instant. It takes 18,000 grueling years of methodical labor. Talk about the ultimate cosmic leg day. And the beautiful sacrificial aftermath is that once the cosmos is secure, Pangu dies. His breath becomes the wind, his blood the rivers, his limbs the mountains. He dissolves to literally become the world we inhabit. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole mystery I've been talking about. When we line these three up side by side, the Maori, Greek, and Chinese traditions, we see separators like Tane Mahuta, Ouranos, and Pangu using wildly different methods: pushing, castration, and incredibly slow growth over 18,000 years. Yet, the architectural framework is identical. We always have a united primordial state, a specific separator figure who intervenes, a definitive method of dividing heaven and earth, and the resulting creation of space. It's the exact same blueprint, just executed by completely different builders. But here's where things get really weird. Tracing the timeline, the roots of the Maori oral tradition date back to the Lapita culture around 1500 BCE. The Greek written record drops in at 700 BCE, and the Chinese Pangu myth is first recorded hundreds of years later between 220 and 265 CE. These ideas are spread out over thousands of years and separated by thousands of miles. So how in the world do they overlap so perfectly?
Section 2. Cultural copycats or coincidences?
All right, time to put on your detective hats. We need to figure out, did these ancient people trade stories over massive trade routes, or did they dream them up entirely alone? Scholars generally fall into two camps here. First, independent development. This theory argues that the human brain just naturally evolves the same ideas because we all look up at the same sky and walk on the same earth. Then you have cultural diffusion. This is the idea that a story was invented in one place and physically passed along through ancient contact or migration. To be fair, cultural diffusion is a very real thing. Stories absolutely spread. For instance, the Greeks almost certainly borrowed their violent castration motif from older Near Eastern Hittite tablets, the Kumarbi cycle, which dates back to 1400 BCE. And the Maori tradition naturally diffused across the Pacific with the Polynesian Lapita expansion. For a long time, some scholars even argued that the Chinese myth of Pangu was just a copycat story brought over by Buddhist missionaries, pointing to similarities with the Indian Vedic text, the Purusha Sukta. But then, archaeologists countered that claim with hard proof. Excavations uncovered Han Dynasty temple remains, earthenware fragments and bricks, strongly suggesting Pangu worship existed well before Buddhist influence reached the area. Add to this ancient Yangshao cosmograms from the 5th millennium BCE showing separated heavens and earth, and the scholarly consensus now leans heavily toward the Chinese myth sprouting up completely independently, just like the others. Section 3. Fact, Fiction, and Science. Let's see how all this builds our understanding when we hold these ancient myths up against modern science. Are these stories just fanciful fiction, or do they capture a different kind of truth? Here's a massive reality check: 13.8 billion. That is the scientifically verified age of our universe in years. It drastically contrasts with Pangu's symbolic 18,000 years, or the immediate shoves from Tane Mahuta and Ouranos. We obviously know the sky and earth were never physically glued together and pried apart by a giant. But don't dismiss these myths just yet. What's genuinely amazing is that while these stories aren't literal history, they serve as brilliant accidental metaphors for actual geological and astronomical processes. Look at the parallels. The differentiation of lighter and heavier elements in the early universe totally mirrors the separation of the light sky from the heavy earth. The concept of Pangu's limbs becoming mountains perfectly mirrors orogeny, the scientific term for tectonic uplift. And in the Maori tradition, the unborn child Ruamoko, trapped in the earth, embodies the very real tectonic and volcanic energy that is literally still shaping New Zealand today. Section 4. Why we tell this story. Which drives us to a really vital conclusion. If these stories aren't literal geological facts, and they weren't all just copied from a single ancient text, why is this specific narrative so universally stubborn? Why do we insist on telling it? Well, it comes down to the human experience. Early agricultural societies desperately needed to explain the connection between the sky providing rain and the earth providing soil. Beyond that, psychologists suggest these stories might just be our ancestors projecting the deeply buried trauma of human birth, that painful separation from the mother to create an independent life, onto the vast canvas of the cosmos. It's a way of creating a safe psychological space, separating the chaotic sacred from our orderly everyday world. So this leaves us with one final, profound question. We've explored the forests of New Zealand, the ancient Greek battlegrounds, and the cosmic egg of Chinese antiquity. And despite all the wild differences in time, geography, and method, the core story remains totally identical. I leave you to ponder this. Are these grand, sweeping mythologies actually about the universe at all? Or are they simply the ultimate reflection of human psychology, revealing that our brains are just fundamentally hardwired to tell the exact same story, anywhere on Earth, just to make sense of our origins and find order in the chaos? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.